Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com for more information about our podcast, articles, and other fun stuff. You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming via War Media by simply searching War on Anchor on all podcast download platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Simply type in that search engine box on your download podcast platforms, War on Anchor, WARR on Anchor. And also, we're on YouTube at War Media, once again at WARR Media. On the YouTube, you can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. As we take a bow for those of you just listening exclusively on the podcast, thank you for your support in advance.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Let's open up, Lakeena, with some Chicago Blackhawks hockey. Let's do that hockey.
Let's do that hockey.
We say congratulations to future Hockey Hall of Famer, Mr. Patrick Kane, a.k.a. Showtime, a.k.a. hashtag That's Hockey, baby. As the Blackhawks continue to surprise the National Hockey League, they're in third place in the Central Division. As they split the weekend series with the Detroit Dead Wings, that's right, I said it, the 7-2 win on Sunday night. The headline of the win from Sunday, Lakeena, is Patrick Kane accomplished a rare feat. He becomes the fourth Blackhawks player in franchise history, the 100th player in NHL history, and the 9th U.S.-born player in history of the game of hockey to achieve career goal number 400. Lakeena, put this out on my social media platforms, i.e. the Twitter, that he is the greatest Blackhawks ever, period. You know, if people have listened to this program and other programs I've been on, War Media, I always say that Jeremy Roenick is my personal favorite. But Patrick Kane will have the numbers to back it up once his career is over. He has the 3 Stanley Cup championships on his resume as well. He will go down statistically, and perhaps out of that stratosphere is the greatest Blackhawk to ever put on skates. I know some people want to argue Bobby Hall, Stan Mikita, may his soul rest in peace, and a few other legends as well. Lakeena, I'll start with you. How much more does, in your opinion, that Patrick Kane has left in his tank?
Well, if you've seen him play this season, I mean, he still has a lot left. I mean, it's crazy. He's also the 5th U.S.-born player in NHL history to score his 400th at age 32 or younger. So, you know, joining guys like Pat LaFontaine, Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk, and Mike Modano. So that's a pretty impressive list, if I do say so myself. But I mean, I think he's shown that, you know, he looks like he's having fun, which, you know, something we hadn't seen the last couple of years. And the team itself, I mean, they're buying in. I mean, we're seeing, you know, guys, you know, some of the guys like, you know, that can contribute. We're also seeing some of the, you know, the younger guys. I mean, DeBrincat and, you know, guys like that. So, look, I think I think Kaner's gonna play for as long as he wants, and, you know, I think that the team, the Blackhawks as a whole, I think they've been playing very well. Like you said, I mean, they split the games against the Red Wings. You know, you're kind of bummed that they didn't sweep. You know, they should have, but, you know, look, it happens. They had a bad game on Friday, but they looked really good on Sunday. And look, I think he's definitely shown you that, you know, he probably is one of the, probably if not the best Blackhawk of all time, but also one of the best American-born players in the last, like, I would say, like, maybe 20 years, I think. So, you know, there might be a couple of guys that some people may say some folks may want to mention, you know, those guys. I think, you know who I'm talking about, Sid. But look, I think he's going to try and play as long as he needs to. He hasn't had any major injuries, you know, again, knock on wood. But
I can hear that.
Yeah, see, there you go. But look, I think he still is playing great, and he's playing at a pretty high level. I think he'll probably try to play until he's 35, 36. You know, I'm sure he's going to take it season by season now, since he is over 30. But I think, look, he still looks great. He still plays great. So I think, what, congrats to him, and he's totally deserving of all these accolades.
And also, to think about it, Lakeena, you brought up age at this point. We all watched him grow up both on and off the ice. Of course, yeah, he's now a new father to a new baby boy, I believe.
Yep.
And you can see that his mentality off the ice has changed over the last several years. Now he has a young child to look after, and I think that helps as well. Now, going back to on the ice, like you said, like in the last couple of years, he hasn't had fun, but it seems like he's been getting better with age. When he came into the league, we all knew that he had the potential to score a whole lot of goals, but with the talent they had around him when they were winning those Stanley Cups, he was asked to be a playmaker. He still scored a lot of goals, but he was asked to be a playmaker first because you had Taves, you had Patrick Sharp, you had Marion Hossa. So he had all those players in their prime, and so he had to kind of take a step back and find his way. He still piled up a lot of points and a lot of numbers, but it seems like over the last 5-6 years, you're starting to see him with a total game on the ice. And right now, Lakeena, I'm with it. He could play as long as he wants to. Could he be Alexander Ovechkin, scoring 600 to 700 goals? That's kind of a stretch, but if he stays healthy within the next 2 or 3 years, he could easily score over 500 goals. Maybe he could push to 600, but we'll see how long that he plays, especially in the Hawks uniform. He's a free agent in a couple of years after this season, but he's looked better as he aged. As he ages.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Excuse me.
He's a hell. I'll say he does that spinorama. Even when he scored that 400, I mean, he fell as soon as he hit the goal. So, I think he's having a lot of fun, and you can kind of tell that too. He still had extra spring in his step. He's matured. He did some some things when he was younger, but you can tell now that, especially how when he was talking about it last night, I mean, you can tell he has grown and matured and evolved. And look, that's what you want from your stars, your stars on your teams. I mean, you want him to be sort of like that mature presence for guys like Doc and Kubalik and guys like that. So I'm looking forward to see what more he has left in the tank. And the team themselves, I mean, they look really good, and they're kind of like right there for at least to compete, at least for a playoff spot. Look, I'm not saying they're the best team in their division. I'm not. I know, I don't want. I mean, they got to face Tampa Bay this week, so the defending Stanley Cup champs. The Florida Panthers are right there too, but they're kind of right there in they're in third place in that division, that Central Division, the sort of realigned Central Division for the season, if you will. So I'm not saying that they're at their level, but I think they could be right there to sort of compete for one of those playoff spots.
You're listening to Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown. As we do that hockey, Chicago Blackhawks hockey, as we talk about Patrick Kane and the men in red. Lakeena, before we back up on the Kane conversation, here's my quick wrap-up on the team. They did what they had to do in taking care of their lesser opponents with the schedule that they have. Like you said, they started off with the first of 3 games against the Tampa Bay Lightning starting on Thursday this week. And we all know what happened down there in Tampa to start the season. Tampa blew them out of the water. So the Hawks have their work cut out for them. Of course, they face Florida again multiple times this month. Now we're entering the month of March. Of course, you face the Dallas Stars again. You swept them in Dallas early last month, but it's going to be a total different story. But here's hope. For you Hawks fans, the power plays in the top 3 in the National Hockey League right now. The penalty kill still has some work to do, but you have to be encouraged by that. And you're getting great goaltending by Kevin Lankinen and Malcolm Subban. Yes, it wasn't all his fault on Saturday night in that first loss to the Detroit, but he came up big on last Thursday with a shutout against Columbus. So you're getting some consistent goaltending, and there are signs pointing to the Hawks being a competitive team. Now, they're in third place, as I mentioned, in the Central Division with the realignment for this year, as you mentioned. The top 4 teams in each division will make the playoffs. Right now, the Hawks are sitting third in their division. Can they keep this up? I believe they can, but we're going to see what this team is really made of as they face better competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had like one of the easiest schedules in the NHL. Now they're going to be going into the hardest part of their schedule, like you said, with the teams you mentioned. So we're going to see what this team's made of. I mean, look, if they could get like not get swept by Tampa, at least split those series. I think they'll, as a Hawks fan, you'll be
Yeah,
feeling
pick up
pretty good.
points.
Yeah, just pick up some points and, against both Tampa and Florida, you'll be in pretty good shape. I mean, I think you want to keep it up, this fact the way the format's set up for this year. So I think you'll be really pretty good if you're a Hawks fan, and you'll just take the points. Just don't take flat out losses. If you get at least a point in each of these games, then you're in pretty good shape.
Yep, that's a good plan. We'll see what happens. We're going for it.
And you know what though, Sid, I'm always wondering, like, if only Taves was there.
Yeah.
This team would probably be a little bit better. I'm not saying that they would be with the Panthers and Tampa, but I can't help but wonder if Taves was healthy and he was playing, then he'd be
Yeah, that's kind of what this potential cloud will be hanging over this team should they fail to make the playoffs. Also, Andrew Shaw is out with a concussion. Of course, he missed the majority of last year with the same injury. So you wonder if those two guys were healthy, the Hawks would be slightly a better team. But as Jeremy Carlton, the head coach, says, you got to roll with the truths that you have. So and they've been doing that so far. So we'll see what happens with them. Now back to Patrick Kane, Lakeena. Even though I don't tell it too much on this show, factually speaking, I was born in 1980. You were born a year later. Where does Patrick Kane, in your mind, rank among some of the best Chicago athletes you've seen with your own two eyes ever since you've been born? I'll say this before you comment.
Okay.
We're going to put Michael Jordan in that team picture already. We're going to put Walter Payton in that team picture already. Those two are already on the list. Where does Patrick Kane rank as far as the best Chicago athletes you ever seen?
Oh, he's in it. He's in the team picture too. I think the fact that we told you guys about all his accomplishments. He's all the stuff he's already accomplished, and he's got 3 Stanley Cups. So, was a big building block for those, and some of the other being an ambassador too to get more Americans playing hockey. I think he's definitely right there in that team picture for some of the best. Some of the best Chicago athletes that I've seen since I was born. I mean, I remember watching those early 90s, those late 80s Blackhawks teams when, you couldn't, watch the home games. I'm not revealing my age too much, but I remember when, the old Chicago Sports Channel, that they only showed the road Blackhawks games because of, some other stuff we won't get into. But I mean, look,
Bill Wirtz had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, and
R.I.P.
yes, may rest in peace, absolutely. But look, I remember I watched Dennis Savard and those guys playing, and I feel like I think he's definitely right there in the Kaner. I mean, is right there in the team picture as probably one of the best Chicago athletes to ever play here in Chicago. I think everything he's accomplished, we've mentioned it many times. He's got 3 Stanley Cups, like I said, and I think the fact that people know. Look, I have nephews who have never watched a lick of hockey in their lives. When Kaner came along and Taves, they especially when the Blackhawks started winning, I think that's when everybody started watching hockey here in Chicago. So that's sort of to me, I think that definitely helps him get him in the team picture because of the fact that he was able to get folks that don't usually watch hockey getting into it. So I think Kaner is definitely right there in the team picture as one of the top Chicago athletes, of all time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Lakeena. I'll throw out some names for you. Over the last 40 years, to my real age on the show, even though I was 20. I'll throw out a couple of names for you as far as is Patrick Kane better than these couple of names I'm going to throw out at you as far as best Chicago athletes over the past 35, 40 years. Brian Urlacher.
Yeah, I think.
You think he ranks above Urlacher?
I think he's right there. I think he's right there at that level.
I know some people would say yes because Kane has 3 Stanley Cup championships. Brian Urlacher doesn't have a championship on his resume, but he did play in the Super Bowl. So I can see why people rank Kane above Urlacher. People have their own opinions, but you make a good case right there. Frank Thomas.
Ooh, another tough one. That's a tough one. Oh gosh, that's another tough one. I think he's. Ooh, shoot. He has, look, Frank's got an MVP. That's something that Kaner does not have.
Mm-hmm.
He has an MVP. Boy, I think
Frank Thomas does have a World Series ring, even though he missed half the year.
Yeah, I'm about to say, but I think that's going to be the thing that's going to be a knock on him, is that he wasn't there for most of it. So,
Mm-hmm.
they got a couple division titles. He was a part of those, but I think
he should have won MVP in 2000.
Yes,
but
he should have. That's another story for another pod. Yeah, I'm about to say that's another story for another pod. But I think he's right. I think he's right there. I think Kaner's right there. I think with Big Frank.
Sammy Sosa.
Oh, he's above him. I think he has. Yeah, I think he's above him. For other other things, but I think he's right there above Sammy.
Andre Dawson.
Ooh, another tough one. One MVP. They should have got a chance to play in the World Series, but again, that's another story for another episode. But I think he's right. He's right there. I think that they're right there with each other. Just because I think for what the Hawk did for Chicago. I'm talking about Andre Dawson. I mean, not the Blackhawk, but yeah.
Scottie Pippen. I think this is the biggest one right here.
Oh, I think Pip's ahead of Kaner. I think.
Okay. Is it just strictly because of championships, or
no.
other intangibles?
No, it's the intangibles. I think he was a big part of all 6 of those championships. Also, too, they were very close to advancing even after Jordan, left a second time. So
yeah. All right. So that's an interesting debate.
What about you in those names?
I think for me personally, he's definitely in the top 5 for sure. You could debate some names who he should be ahead of or behind. I'm with you as far as Urlacher. He's slightly ahead of Urlacher because of the championships. Scottie Pippen, he's behind him, but part of it is because of the championships. But it really comes down to this. Yes, I don't want to go too deep with this, but let's be honest here, Lakeena. We're a broadcaster from Chicago. This is a Bears town first, whether people like it or not. It is a Bears town first. Then you can say Cubs second, Bulls third, Sox fourth, Hawks last. And so I think that really hurts Patrick Kane, even though they're the last. Well, the Cubs were the last team to bring a pro championship here to Chicago, the 4 major sports. But before then, the Hawks won their 3 championships. Even though the city was happy, let's be honest here, unfortunately, it's not a Blackhawks town first. This is a Bears town. I think that's what really hurts him, because he could be above some of these other guys that the game of hockey was promoted more, or the people cared about the Hawks second or even third. But this is a Bears town first. It's a football town first, then a baseball town second. I think that's what really hurts him, as far as I think in many people's eyes, that he could be top 2 or top 3. Like I said, he's in my top 5 of one of the best Chicago athletes that we've ever seen, but he could be higher. But unfortunately, the game of hockey, they failed to promote themselves.
Yeah.
And this town is second or dead last in some people's minds.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part.
All right, let's move on, Lakeena, to the National Football League. We have breaking news, which broke on Monday afternoon. J.J. Watt, who was cut by the Houston Texans last month, has found a new home. He is now a member of the Arizona Cardinals. He signed a 2-year, $31 million deal. $23 million of that is guaranteed. Lakeena, I was going through a text chain with some of our colleagues at War Media, in particular Kyle Means. He made a comment that Russell Wilson, who we talked about in our last episode, which he didn't call out as far as wanted to be traded, but if I wanted to be traded, one of those teams is the Chicago Bears. But Kyle Mays, our colleague and editorial director of War Media, he said this, and I quote, "Russell Wilson should try to get out of the division now."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, and then there was just a tweet that came out. You got J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones' new teammate. They got Aaron Donald with the Rams. They got Nick Bosa. Hopefully he'll better, because he'll be rehabbing from that pectoral muscle injury last year. But I'm I'm sure, Russell Wilson's probably calling his agent saying, about me not wanting a trade. J.J. Watt, look, I know he's 30, he'll be 32 at the end of this month, and he's still playing at a high level. And like we've been saying, the Cardinals, they can always use pass rushers to help out with Jones and Isaiah Simmons. So I think having him helps. And I mean, that's gonna be a tough division, no doubt. I mean, top to bottom, that division is really good. That's gonna be a very competitive division next year. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm probably saying, yeah, you might be calling somebody. you might be trying to call somebody.
I think it's behind the scenes, but here's the thing, Lakeena. Where does this leaves the Chicago Bears? Some people thought that J.J. Watt would come here because of his wife plays soccer on the Red Stars during the summer, and I get it from that angle. We talked about this before, but I didn't think the Bears had a realistic shot of getting J.J. Watt, even though the defense is still good on paper. We saw at the end of the season, Lakeena, and even in that playoff loss against the New Orleans Saints, that offense didn't help them out, so the defense broke. Fell apart. Part of it was due to head coaching as well. But, that defense can only carry that dead-ass offense for so long. And it's getting a year older. You have a couple of guys coming back next year, Eddie Goldman and Hakeem Hicks. Hope he starts a new season healthy. And you have Khalil Mack dealing with his issues, especially with his knee. Where do the Bears go from here as far as getting younger and getting better on defense? Like I said, I didn't expect J.J. Watt to come here, so I'm not all that upset. I know some Bears fans are upset that we didn't get Watt. You really think that he was going to come here? Mm-mm. The answer is no, and it's not going to happen, obviously.
Well, and like we've been saying, I mean, they didn't have a realistic shot. I know some people said, well, I saw some people were trying to recruit him to come here, and like you said, Kalea, his wife, who's a very accomplished soccer player, plays for the Red Stars. Look, they didn't have the money either. Arizona has the money, and they got a young defense. The Bears don't have the money. The defense is getting older. If you're J.J. Watt, who are you go? And you may actually have a chance to go to the playoffs with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Bears fans were expecting. I mean, honestly, I don't think he was gonna be. I didn't think he was gonna come here. I didn't think he was going to.
I didn't think so either, but this Bears team must get better and younger, and they're at a crossroads because, as we talked about many times on this show, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, both of them are fighting to keep their jobs. Ain't not good enough, and what happened in the playoffs last season against New Orleans is not good enough either. So you're between a rock and a hard place, and this is what happens when you're in mediocrity. You don't know which direction to go. Which you damned if you do, damned if you don't. So you're stuck in the middle. So you're trying to fight your way out, and this is what the Bears are facing right now.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And look, the Bears got their own problems, and they got bigger problems to deal with. They got bigger fish to fry. So you didn't get J.J. Watt, you weren't going to get him anyway. So let's just move on.
Speaking of moving on. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Lakeena, as we wrap up this first segment, we have a few minutes left. The Bulls game against the Toronto Raptors was postponed on Sunday due to COVID issues with the Toronto Raptors organization. And their game against the Denver Nuggets was played last night. We'll review that game on Friday for Saturday's the terrible loss at home on Friday, last Friday against the Phoenix Suns. The Suns came back to win 106-97. Phoenix outscored the Bulls 32-16 in the fourth quarter. The Bulls were leading by 15 to begin the fourth quarter. Lakeena, I don't know if you caught the comments of Bulls head coach Billy Donovan. He said, I'm just paraphrasing, he was disappointed after the game, and rightfully so, trying to culture and trying to get the players within the right mindset as far as finishing games. We talked about it throughout the season, that this Bulls team needs to be consistent playing 48 minutes. They didn't do that on Friday. They lost to Phoenix, and they got to get that bad taste out of their mouths if they want to take the next step as far as becoming a competitive team, becoming a playoff team.
Look, I thought that when I saw the game, I was actually shocked that the Bulls were up by that many points against a pretty good Phoenix team. So I was a little surprised that they were up. They were up like that. But look, I mean, they're still learning how to walk, as I heard somebody say. So, okay, they lost you lost to a pretty good Suns team, and they're in the top 4 in the West. So I'm not gonna oh my God, they're not gonna freak out about it. Look, I mean, but I mean, again, look, they're still learning, and look, they got to play games from start to finish. They're still learning that, I think Zach LaVine was a little bit, fatigued with everything that's going on with, the All-Star games, and All-Star, the pomp and circumstance for the All-Star stuff. I think that was, a little bit draining to him because he kind of looked like he was tired. But hopefully, hopefully on Monday he'll play. I'm sure he'll play, but I'm sure they'll bounce back against the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets are a 7 seed right now, but it looks like they're starting to have issues with COVID too. That's why the game against Toronto was postponed. So if they can win, hopefully they beat the Nuggets, they'll beat the Nuggets, and then we'll talk more about that. But look, I mean, they had their struggles. Kobe White had his struggles too. Now they're out of the playoff, race right now, but there's still only a game out of the fifth seed, and they were a half game out of a game and a half, a half game I should say, out of the 8th seed with the Hornets. But they're still right there. They would be in the play-in, if the season ended today. But again, you're going to be having a tougher schedule at the second half of the season, so you try to get these wins now, and we'll see. I mean, I'm sure they'll bounce back, and I'm sure they'll be okay.
Breaking down the box score from the Bulls' loss last Friday, of course, Patrick Williams played 33 minutes. He only scored 4 points. As you mentioned, Kobe White scored 19, only 1 of 6 from three-point land. Zach LaVine did his thing as usual, 24 points off of 9 and 16 shooting. Thaddeus Young, who's been saying for the last week or so that this team needs to have confidence that they can go win every game. He scored 13 points off the bench and 22 minutes off of 6 of 11 shooting. Luke Cornett chipped in with 11 points. So I'll say this again, Lakeena. You have Zach LaVine and you have Kobe White, who scores are streaky, but who's going to be that third guy who's going to help out? Will it be Wendell Carter Jr., who only scored 2 points in their last game? Gary Temple has been a surprise this year. So who's going to be that consistent third guy to help out on his team? You notice I didn't mention Lauri Markkanen. If he comes back, it'll be a surprise. This team is actually playing better without him right now.
Oh yeah, they definitely look better without him, and I think Coach Donovan knows that. I mean, look, Wendell had his struggles against Aiden. Look, Aiden's 7'2", so he has that effect on a lot of people. But look, I think somebody needs to step up and be that third guy, especially if Lauri, is gone by the time after the trade deadline. Will it be Carter Jr.? Will it be P. Will it be Thad Young? Assuming if he's still here, if he doesn't get traded. So somebody needs to sort of step up and be sort of like that third guy to help out LaVine, to help out Kobe White. You need 3 stars too, to kind of, get you facilitating that offense. So I'm interested to see what they do here. I think, look, I trust Billy Donovan. I think he's going to figure it out, and hopefully they'll be able to.
Yeah, like you said, they're right there as far as the playoffs are concerned. It's a long way from being done, and this team has a chance to sneak in the playoffs, but they just have to play more consistent. Lakeena, what were some of the best moments or some of the best games that you witnessed throughout this past weekend in the National Basketball Association?
There were a lot, but I gotta say the Mavs being the Nets was somewhat impressive. I kind of
Kristaps Porzingis had the best game in the Mavs uniform.
Yeah,
of course, he's been injured half the time there, but he really showed out on last Saturday night. That was very impressive.
But I would also mention too that Kyrie's out now with shoulder surgery, and also too KD still isn't back yet. So I'm kind of I know a lot of Mavs fans will take the win, but let's remember too two of those the big 3, if you will, for the Nets didn't play. So I'm kind of I kind of give an asterisk on that. in that particular win. But look, if you're a Mavs fan, you'll take it. You're right there at the edge of the playoff chase. The Lakers, I mean, those, they're in a sort of a mini 2-game winning streak. I mean, they looked really good against the Blazers. They looked really good, on Sunday night against the Warriors. And look, I think having Dennis Schroeder back, I think that definitely helps. LeBron, because LeBron doesn't have to do it all by himself, because remember, he's 36 years old, folks, and he can't do it by himself all the time. But look, I mean, Marquise Morris had a nice showing with 13 points. Kyle Kuzma did what he needed to do, and I think they're getting some contributions. We'll see what they do. I mean, like I said, having Schroeder back, I think definitely helps LeBron. I mean, to kind of feel like he doesn't have to be the guy all the time. And, also the bench is starting to help out a little bit. Kuzma, contributed, also Caruso and Horton Tucker. So, especially in that game against the Warriors. So I gotta think that the Lakers look really good. I think they're starting to kind of, I'm not saying they're turning the corner, but at the very least they're sort of, I think they're kind of meshing finally. Maybe they'll probably do a little bit better until AD is able to come back. The Wizards Celtics game on Sunday was probably the strangest ending you'll probably ever see to a basketball game. That was just odd to me. I mean, the Wizards were up big, but then the Celtics came back, and there was a call against Beal, and then Beal, missed a shot. He was double teamed, but he had the look. So, I mean, that's probably a loss that I'm sure the Wizards would love to have back. The Knicks, I mean, the Knicks have, they've won 3 in a row. I mean, they look really good. I mean, D Rose,
Derrick Rose, and Julius Randle. Look out!
I mean, I'm hoping they'll still have their legs up by the end of the season, because we in Chicago know how that is. So, but more power to them.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, but more power to Tibbs and the Knicks. We'll see if they can still keep it up. I mean, our girl Alana Tucker, I'm sure she's happy that the Heat, they just won on Sunday. They've won 6 in a row. So they looked really good. I mean, Jimmy Butler is doing his thing, and Bam Adebayo, has been doing his thing too. So they've won 6 in a row. They're in the 5 seed in the East right now. I mean, there've been some pretty impressive performances. I mean, probably one of the weirdest things I saw over the weekend was, I guess, the Thunder had to change their uniforms, because I guess their uniforms and the Hawks, the Atlanta Hawks, I should say, uniforms, they all look alike. And I guess they had to change their their home jerseys, which I don't understand why they don't do that anyway, but that's a whole nother thing. But that's probably the weirdest thing I saw over the weekend. But what about you?
Of course, they had to give it up to the Lakers. It seems like they had their game together. Of course, Portland was the better opponent on Friday, even though the Lakers came back and won. The Lakers took care of the Warriors on Sunday, and so it looks like everything's back on track for now as the first half of the season winds down. I want to focus in on the Boston Celtics. They're back at 500 as of this recording. That's 17-17. You mentioned about the Wizards game on Sunday. Jason Tatum had an outstanding performance. Of course, Boston took care of business last Friday against Indiana. Kemba Walker, it looks like he's starting to get his game back. He scored 32 points in that game. Jason Tatum, hopefully you can have a healthy Kemba Walker, stay healthy and stay consistent. That's going to be a dangerous team. You also have Jaylen Brown as an all-star as well, and you have Marcus Smart. So hopefully Boston can start to turn around and maybe take some of the heat off of Brad Stevens, because I know people wanted him fired for the last couple of weeks. As of right now, the answer is no, but we still have the second half of the season to go there. So I'm looking at the Boston Celtics. Of course, the Phoenix Suns, we knew what they did on Friday here in Chicago against the Bulls. Of course, Sunday's action, I want to focus in on the Sacramento Kings. They lost at the buzzer to the Charlotte Hornets, 127-126. P.J. Washington had a career-high 42 points. Harrison Barnes led the Sacramento Kings with 28. But the Sacramento Kings missed 5 free throws under the last minute and a half. And, of course, Buddy Hield, congratulations to him. He becomes the fastest player to hit 1,000
three-pointers.
1,000 three-pointers for his career. Congrats to him. Yeah. And Sacramento is one of these young teams. They have the talent. Trace Halliburton, watch out for him. Too bad he's not in the Bulls uniform, but that's a whole other issue. But but they have a young and exciting team. But you see, with all young teams, especially in basketball, you got to learn how to win. And that game on Sunday is one of those games that you had to go back and look at the tape and say, this is what to do, this is what not to do in close games. You had to mature and grow and get better in those situations. As I said before a few weeks ago, Lakeena, Charlotte, I know not too many people are talking about them, but these are one of the teams that people better watch. I'm not saying they're going to win the championship or anything like that, but LaMelo Ball is impressive. Gordon Hayward is there. And so Charlotte is not a bad team. They still have a little bit of ways to go as well, but don't sleep on them. This is not the team of a few years ago with Kemba Walker and Al Jefferson hanging on for dear life. So those and Michael Kidd Gilchrist, those are not those bad mediocre teams. Charlotte is fun to watch. Like I said, LaMelo Ball is I'm sure is your front runner for Rookie of the Year.
I mean, I saw that game against the Kings, and via my laptop. Malik Monk had to add one to about a second and a half left and like you said, Sid, I mean, the Kings kind of remind me of the Bulls in a lot of ways because they're a young team. There's a lot of talent there, but they're just learning how to win, and those are the kind of games that like you said, Sid, it's gonna you could look at yourself and think oh, darn it, why did we blow that lead? But it is what it is. Like you said, Healed, the fastest to get to 1,000 threes, only did it 350 games. Just stunning to me. Look, there's a lot of talent there with the Kings. I mean, they basically kind of wiped everything clean and started over. And look, they're kind of creeping up there. It's probably going to take another year or two to kind of be right there in the West, especially the West is so loaded right now. But look, I'm sure they'll get together, get a couple of superstars to get to Sacramento, and hopefully they'll get together. But I think one more team I gotta say though that is impressive to me is the Bucks.
Yes,
they've won 5 in a row. Including the win on Sunday night against Sunday afternoon, I should say, against the Clippers. Where the Clippers actually had a big lead. Then they lost the lead, and Giannis, showed you why he has 2 MVPs. Just looked really good, and they made some stops late too. I mean,
yeah.
He's leading his team in points and rebounds from 14 straight games. That's like the third longest since the merger. Only Moses Malone and Karl Malone, no relation, have had longer streaks. In doing that. So, congrats to him. And, he's putting himself back in the MVP conversation, and the Bucks are, back into the Easter conversation.
Yes, after losing 5 in a row, they're currently on a 5-game winning streak. I did catch the ending of that game. Of course, the Clippers scored their last bucket with 4 minutes left to go in regulation. And, of course, they never scored again. Like you mentioned, Giannis had 17 big points in that fourth quarter. And the Bucks did what they had to do. I'm putting them, Lakeena, I'm putting them in the same category as the Utah Jazz. You're a great regular season team. More so Milwaukee because they've been on the edge of reaching the finals with the Giannis in this group. They haven't done so yet. But I'm putting the pressure on Milwaukee. You're a great regular season team, but you don't have the toughness in the playoffs. I'll say that again. You're a great regular season team, but you don't bring it during the playoffs. And I'll keep asking this again. Chris Middleton is a nice player, but he's not your number 2. Drew Holiday, who just made his comeback from his injuries, he was a nice addition. We talked about it before the season, Lakeena. He's going to help them out. But what else do you have? So Milwaukee, they still a question mark to me. Me personally, I think they need to switch the head coach. It might Budenholzer. He's a good coach. I know he's a great Popovich protege, but this coach fails to make adjustments. And if that happens again this year, even though it's a tougher Eastern Conference League through the first 3-4 teams, it'll be time for a change at the head spot. But we'll see what happens. But you have to give Milwaukee credit right now. But I'm waiting for them to show up in the playoffs. Just wake me up winning if that happens.
Same thing with Utah. I said it before about Utah too. Look, let them get their accolades. Let them get the talked about a lot in the top stories on various sports shows and whatnot. But do it in the playoffs. That's the key. Do it in the playoffs. It doesn't mean anything unless you can do this type of thing in the playoffs. So who knows what that'll do? Because we know where things happen. We saw it in the bubble. Last fall. Just saying.
Speaking of doing things, we're going to take this 20-second timeout as you're listening to Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. On the flip side, we'll tell you the games to watch for this week for the NBA as the first half nears to a close, because it'll be All-Star Weekend next weekend in Atlanta. Also, we have to talk about college basketball, both locally and nationally. And there's some news as far as television viewing is concerned for next season in the National Football League. And I'll have a fun topic for those of you that are our age and slightly younger and older. You'll relate to this one whether you want to hear it or not. All of that and so much more. You're listening to Second City Sports. Welcome back to Second City Sports Zoom style.
Zoom style.
Along with Miss Lakeena McGee, I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com, for more information. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other podcast programming from War Media by simply going to War on Anchor in your search engine boxes on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Just type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. Also, we're on YouTube, aka YouTube 321. We're also on the Tube, aka YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. As I take a bow, thank you for your support in advance.
We are live, folks. Yeah, as you can tell by the tongue twister there. Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, as we pick up on our NBA discussion, Lakeena, as I mentioned before we took our quick break, the first half of the season will be winding down on Thursday, as we'll give you to watch between now and Thursday. Well, let's start out with the schedule for tonight, which will be Tuesday, March the 2nd, Lakeena. First game of the TNT doubleheader will feature the Los Angeles Clippers as they continue their road trip East Coast, as they'll take on the Boston Celtics at TD Bank Garden. And, of course, wrapping up the night will be the Phoenix Suns travel to Los Angeles to take on the Lakers at Staples Center at 9 o'clock p.m. Chicago time.
Should be some fun games, both those games. Another game I'm looking forward to is the one a little earlier than that, about an hour early, about 8 o'clock. Milwaukee as they host the Nuggets. That should be a lot of fun. Giannis versus Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. That should be a lot of fun. I'm surprised that was not nationally televised, but you can check it out on other platforms on the NBA League Pass and all that. So it could be a fun game. Also, Knicks and Spurs.
Via your computer.
Via your laptop, exactly, or whatever device.
Via your television.
Exactly. Whatever device you're watching, listening from. Also, too, the Knicks and the Spurs. That should be a fun one, too, at 7:30. That should be a good one.
Yes, let's switch over to Wednesday, which will be tomorrow if you listen to this podcast, which will be so many are on a Tuesday. Wednesday's action, which will be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Chicago time. This is game one of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader. It's the Brooklyn Nets taking on the Houston Rockets. James Harden's return to Houston. Will Kevin Durant and or Kyrie Irving join him? We don't know, but we know that James Harden will show up. We'll see how many points will he drop on the Houston Rockets. I smell a 50-piece, or do you think I'm exaggerating?
Oh, no, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a 50. I wouldn't be surprised, especially against a Houston team that's clearly tanking. So, yeah, they'll probably be a 30, 40-point, deficit. So I'm sure he'll probably, if he does return, I'm sure he'll return, in style.
And wrapping up the ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader at 9 o'clock Chicago time will be the Golden State Warriors at the Portland Trailblazers. Steph Curry versus Damian Lillard. That should be a whole lot of fun. It will be a whole lot of fun.
Oh, no doubt. The game itself should be a lot of fun, too. Also, the Bulls and the Pelicans, that's going to be their last game. The Bulls, until after the All-Star break. So that should be a fun one there. They split their season series so far, so let's see how they do in this game. Should be very interesting.
Yep, and at 6 o'clock Chicago time, the Utah Jazz would travel to Philadelphia to take on the 76ers at Wells Fargo Center. Of course, Philadelphia is trying to hold on to that top spot in the East. Utah has been on the roll for the last month. They have 27 wins and 7 losses, so that game should be competitive as well. Wrapping up the first half of the NBA season on Thursday, you will have these key games as follows. At 6 p.m. Chicago time, you'll have Toronto at Boston to take on the Celtics, the rematch of last year's playoffs. And also at 7 p.m., you'll have the Denver Nuggets as they continue on their East Coast road trip. They'll take on the Pacers, Indianapolis Pacers at Bankers Life Field House. And, of course, at 7:30, you'll have the Miami Heat at the New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, followed by 8 o'clock by the Oklahoma City Thunder at the surprising San Antonio Spurs. And, of course, at 9 p.m., you'll have the Golden State Warriors at the Phoenix Suns.
And also, too, should be a lot of fun. The Clippers and the Wizards. I mean, the Wizards have been playing well lately. You know, Russell Westbrook against Kawhi Leonard. That should be an interesting one in that front. I mean, the Wizards have actually been giving teams fits lately, so we'll see how that game goes. So some great games to finish up the first half of the NBA season.
Yes, and it should be a whole lot of fun, and we'll have more on those games and preview, which will be now in All-Star Weekend in Atlanta on our next episode for the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Let's move on to college basketball. Lakeena, let's start out locally. The Fighting Illini, they are still ranked 5th in the nation as they won their last 2 games against Nebraska and last Saturday against Wisconsin, as they are doing it without their star point guard, Ayo Dosunmu, or as I call him, AL on this show. I watched the majority of that game. Lakeena, Illinois took control of this game on the road at Wisconsin early, but they almost blew it down the stretch. They made some key free throws to eke out a 74-69 win. DeMonte Williams led the Illini with 24 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Dimitri Trice, which may be his last game at the Kohl Center in Wisconsin and Madison, he scored, as I straighten out my computer, he scored 29 points. He had about 3 three-point field goals within the last 30 seconds. That young man put on a performance and almost pulled out a victory. It was for the Illini hitting their free throws down the stretch.
Yeah, Trice is a really great player, and with the NCAA game, letting their athletes have an extra year eligibility. So he actually is a 5th-year guy, so he can actually come back for his 6th year if he wants. A couple of players have already said that they would come back, so we'll see what he does. He's been a great asset, kind of keeping Wisconsin afloat since they've had their struggles the last few weeks. The Badgers have, but look, it was a nice win for Illinois, and they hung on. So I'm sure. Look, look, we saw Bradowa's reaction. Look, the Big Ten, top to bottom, is probably one of the best conferences, if not the best conference in the country. So, it's look, you're gonna have a fight every game just about. So it's fine.
Yeah, and going deeper into the box score for the Illini, Kofi Cockburn, the Jamaican sensation, led the Illini. He had, excuse me as we turn that sound down. I hate these computers. But anyway, Kofi Cockburn had 19 points for the Illini off of 7 of 13 shooting. They were really going to him early. He established himself. Wisconsin had no answer for him. As I mentioned, DeMonte Williams had 12 points for the Illini. Trent Frazier struggled. He only had 6 points in 35 minutes off of 1 of 3 shooting, but Curbelo had 17 points for the Illini off the bench. Now, they got away with not having that much bench production in the absence of Dosunmu, but it was an important win against a better team. We all looked at the game a couple of days before against Nebraska, which is a lesser opponent. But I was impressed by the Illini's win on the road at Wisconsin last Saturday. Of course, you're listening to this podcast on a Tuesday. They'll face Michigan tonight. I think it's going to be a different result. But with that being said, you have to be impressed with the Illini not feeling sorry for themselves, winning their last 2 games following the Dosunmu injury.
Yeah, I mean, they show that there's a lot of depth in this Illini team, which is fantastic because they're going to need that depth because they're going to be facing Michigan.
Yes.
and that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be an ESPN game. I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait. It's good. It's probably going to be for the number one seed in the Big Ten tournament next week. So I'm looking
Yes.
forward to it. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. Some of my games from myself from this past weekend, Kansas is like, hey, don't forget about us. They upset
Yes.
Baylor. Maceo Teague, 18 points. He's been playing better lately for the Jayhawks. And look, the Jayhawks, this might not be the most talented, blue chip, team. But you know what? They've been looking really good lately. They're getting a lot of, more depth. They're getting a lot of pressure. Teague's been playing well. Their centers have been playing well too. So look, Kansas gets sort of like, look, will they make a deep run? Who knows? But look, Kansas is kind of showing you why they're still Kansas.
Yeah, as we mentioned, Bill Self's the veteran head coach down there in Manhattan, Kansas. They struggled coming out of the game due to obvious reasons because of their talent, of course, dealing with COVID issues. But it looks like they gotten back on track. Baylor has been up there all year, but Kansas is one of those teams. It's not as dominant as it has been in years past, but I wouldn't sleep past them. They could definitely make some noise in the tournament coming up.
Absolutely. And of course, Cade Cunningham is a name, a top NBA prospect name that's, people are watching out for him. He had 40 points as the OK State upset Oklahoma in overtime, down in Norman. And that's, look, I think he's been, playing very well. And OK State could probably perhaps be a tough out for somebody, once, everything, sort of sorts stuff out, and then they can make the tournament. But OK State, looking pretty good.
Yep, they are pretty good. And speaking of the Fighting Illini, as we go back locally for a moment, their opponent tonight will be the Michigan Wolverines, the third-ranked Wolverines. They defeated Indiana 73-57. The Wolverines had no problem. Franz Wagner had 21.6 rebounds and 1 assist, while Race Thompson led the Hoosiers with 11. Lakeena, as you mentioned, Michigan is on a roll right now. I think they won their last 4 or 5 games. And so Juwan Howard, Chicago's very young, has that team on a roll. And will they have a number 1 overall seed? That remains a question, but they're definitely a top 3, top 4 team in the country.
Oh, absolutely. They're definitely going to be right there. And perhaps those number 1 seeds, Texas and Texas Tech. Tech gets the best of Texas in that matchup. North Carolina's another team that's been playing very well. I mean, Raquan.
I told you to watch out for this game. They started off slow, but they come back from 16 points to pick up an 8-point win, 78-70. Walker Kessler had 20 points. He was huge. Florida State had no answer for him down the stretch. They were outscored by the Carolina Blue 49-29 in the second half.
And also, too, congrats to Roy Wills, got his 900 win, the quickest coach to do so in the fewest games. So props to him. And it looks like North Carolina is sort of like, hey, you know what? Don't forget about us either. I mean, he'll be the first to tell you that this is probably the youngest, one of the youngest teams that he's had to coach, but they're playing better at the right time. So, congrats, to them. It looks like the Tar Heels might have something to say, in the ACC.
Yeah, they've been playing well as of late these last few weeks.
Going into the Sunday matchups, Iowa got a big win, 16 points, victory over Ohio State. Luka Garza had 24 points, and they actually lost one of their top 3-point shooters. So the fact, Jeff inched to the rest of the season. So the fact that they were able to actually, shoot, they actually shot well from 3. So, I think Luka Garza is showing you why he's one of the top players in the country and one of the finalists for Player of the Year. Their 3-point shooting, 10, they were 10 for 24, but he made enough of sort of took the team on his back, and we'll see if that can last, trying to go deep into the tournament. But look, Luka Garza is showing you why he's one of the top players in the country.
Yep, and also, too, from Sunday's action, Butler upset number 8 Villanova 73-61. Jeremiah Robinson, only player that really showed up for Villanova, scored 16 points but grabbed 16 rebounds. But Chuck Harris was the story for the Bulldogs. He scored 20 points and grabbed 5 rebounds. And also, too, number 12, the Houston Cougars had no problem taking care of South Florida 98-52.
Going back to that Villanova game for a second, they were just brutal from 3, 2 for 27. which is like the worst since, the Jay Wright era started all the way back in the early 2000s. So it's definitely safe to say they're going to be practicing for their three-point shooting. I'm going to go out on a limb there as they get into the Big East. just going out on a limb there, but I'm just saying. But also, too, look, Maryland had a nice win against Michigan State, sort of, playing this top, at least for now. They're turning chances, Sparty's chances, but Maryland looked really good. Eric Ayala, I can't pronounce his name. Sorry, Eric. 22 points in that front. Josh Laker only 12 in a losing cause for Michigan State. These are kind of losses that might come back to bite you in the butt if you're Sparty. So especially you're only got a couple of weeks left in the season. So, my gosh, it's gonna be very interesting in that sense. Some of the games to look out for tonight. Another top 5 matchup here in the Big 12. Baylor hoping to bounce back for that loss to Kansas. They go at West Virginia and Morgantown. That should be a lot of fun there. TCU against Texas Tech. That should be another good one. Wisconsin and Purdue. That should be a fun one too.
Yeah, big game for both teams.
Indiana, Michigan State as well. So this could probably be like an eliminator for a bubble. This could be a bubble eliminator too with those teams. So yeah. So
also, yeah, go ahead, Lakeena.
No. You go ahead. I'm going to Wednesday.
Okay, a couple of games for Wednesday. Louisville will travel to Blacksburg, Virginia, to face the number 22 ranked Virginia Tech Hokies. That should be a whole lot of fun. Villanova is looking forward to bouncing back against Creighton as number 10 will face number 14. They'll be on FS1 at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the number 19 ranked San Diego State Aztecs will travel to Vegas to take on UNLV.
Oh, always a fun one there. San Diego State trying to keep the on that side of the bubble. They'll probably get it regardless, but I think if you're the Aztecs, you want to try and kind of get as many wins as you can. That Creighton Villanova, I mean, look, Villanova's going to want to bounce back from their first meeting, which Creighton beat it pretty handily. Also want to bounce back after not shooting the 3-point very well. I have a feeling that they're going to do that a little bit better though on Wednesday, tomorrow night, I should say. That should be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. And wrapping up the Thursday schedule, Michigan will host Michigan State. That's at 6 o'clock on Thursday on ESPN Chicago time. At that same time on ESPN2, number 17 Oklahoma State. The Cowboys will travel to Waco, Texas to face number 3 Baylor.
Should be a fun one there. TCU West Virginia should be a good one. Some of these other games are kind of makeup games. Texas, Oklahoma, that should be a fun one. Arizona State at number 24, Colorado. That should be a fun one there. So as we're kind of going down to the wire in the regular season, you got a lot of teams that are going to be jockeying for, positioning in that bubble, especially since, with everything going on, some teams opting out and conference opting out. So it's going to be a lot of openings. Also, to the Missouri Valley Conference tournament starts on tomorrow, I believe. So,
and speaking of the Missouri Valley Conference, before we move on to the next topic, congratulations to the Loyola Chicago Ramblers, their head coach Porter Moser and their whole program over there. Their basketball team swept the 2-game series against Southern Illinois over the weekend to capture their regular season conference title. I believe it's their 3rd in 4 years. So, congratulations to that program. As we said, Lakeena, the Missouri Valley Conference tournament, stranger things have happened throughout the years. There's that one team that scares the top seed. So will that happen again this year? I would bet on it. I would say yes. But Loyola, I'm pretty sure, I'm 99.9% sure that they're in. They just got to make their tournament final. And Drake, that's a team that you really got to worry about. All they have to do is make it to the final as well.
Oh, yeah, I think, like I said, I think if both these teams make the final, I think they'll both get into the tournament no matter who ends up winning it. You don't want to be, a couple years back, we talked about it, Illinois State, they got in, when the top 2 seeds, lost, and I think one of them lost in the quarterfinal, and, Illinois State was able to sneak in there and, get to the tournament a couple of years back. So, like I said, strange things happen in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. So if you're Loyola, if you're Drake, you don't want that. So I would say try to get into the final, and then, you'll be sitting pretty. You don't have to worry about having to have to.
All right. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGinn and Sydney Brown. As we wind down here, Lakeena, we have a few minutes left, but we have a couple of topics to go over. Let's go back to the National Football League. It looks like their TV contracts will be finalized between the league and the networks very soon. Of course, CBS, NBC, and Fox will re-up. It looks like Monday Night Football and ESPN, looks like they'll be joined with ABC now. Looks like many, if not all, those games will be simulcasted on NBC. But it looks like ABC may be producing the Thursday night package. The reason why I say that because Amazon Prime will have the exclusive rights, correct me if I'm wrong, exclusive rights to show Thursday Night Football, but ABC, it looks like they're going to produce it, which means that, like as mentioned, ABC, ESPN will produce it, even though they have competing apps there. And as we also mentioned before, Fox will be entering their last 2 years of the 5-year Thursday Night Football deal. So it'll be 21 and 2022, and that'll be it for Fox as far as Thursday Night Football is concerned. But they'll still be doing their coverage for Sundays. Now, this also means as well that getting into that now for network rotation as far as broadcasting the Super Bowl.
Yeah, ABC will now be a part of that Super Bowl rotation.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a nice deal for them. I think they've been trying to get into that Super Bowl rotation for like the last decade. So props to them. And look, we'll see what they do. I think they're going to try and get this announced, if not this week, perhaps maybe next week. So we'll see like the final what the numbers and whatnot. So. Like you said, so Amazon Prime will be the Thursday night, but it'll be produced on ABC. So don't be surprised if they put it on like one of their ABC stream platforms. Whether it's ABC, whether it's like ESPN2 or ESPN News or ESPNU, so that folks will be able to watch it if they don't have Amazon Prime, which most folks don't. And also too, the ABC will be joining the Super Bowl rotation, and pretty much, like you said, pretty much everything else is going to be status quo. I mean, they'll probably have to bump up more money. I think they'll ask for like 100% like raise, if you will, but everything will pretty much be status quo.
Yeah, and speaking of platforms, Lakeena, inside the NFL, I don't know how long you go back with this program, but I remember watching this program as a child. Of course, it was started in 1977, but I didn't start watching on a regular basis till the early and mid 90s when it was on HBO. And of course, it moved to Showtime prior to the 2007 season. Now, inside the NFL will not be seen much longer on your television screen. Their season wrap-up show, which they showed the highlights of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this year's Super Bowl. That'll be the last show that will be aired on Showtime. The reason why I say that is because inside the NFL will be seen on download platforms because of CBS's new Paramount app. And so if you want to catch Inside the NFL, you'll be catching that exclusively on the CBS Paramount app starting next fall.
Yeah, nice little. Yeah, I mean, look, I watched it a little bit. When we finally were able to get HBO, and of course now it's been on Showtime the last like half a decade or 13 or 14 years, and it's definitely gonna be the end of an era. But this is kind of where we're going to with going to these streaming platforms with some of these programming and content. So. Well, I mean, definitely gonna be the end of an era, but I'm sure it'll be repeated. I'm sure it'll be shown somewhere in their CBS platforms too. So, it might be their way to try to get more people to get the Paramount Plus, as it'll be now be known in next week. But look, I mean, it's I'm sure that NFL is probably going to try to go ahead, be ahead of the streaming platforms, but also too they know what their bread and butter is it's network television. So we're not going to see any like really big changes anytime soon.
And also too, Lakeena, we talk about this all the time, where these networks will showcase their ratings of how many people watch this show or that show, or talking about sports, how many people watch this game, be it traditionally on their televisions at the same time. Do they count those streaming services, those streaming platforms? Many of those cases, no. And just case in point, this year's Super Bowl, I believe it was 91 million people that watched it. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
Give
With
or
the
take.
streaming services, it came closer to 96 million after the streaming services. So these networks will have to automatically count how many people are watching combined on live television and on streaming at the same time, because the way we consume content, Lakeena, as you well know, as our listeners and viewers well know, is very different. It's not just sitting in front of your television anymore. And I don't think every television still has a Nielsen chip or whatever you want to call it
A
to
box, a
count it.
box,
So
a box,
a
yeah.
box. So those that's where those streaming numbers really can kick in.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I think networks are not looking at just the television, boxes anymore, because like you said nobody has those boxes anymore, but just about every house now has a streaming box or a streaming device or a smart TV that has those streaming apps. And look, my mom knows how to use use those things now. She's like the least, and she'll tell you that she's like the least tech savvy person, in the world. So, but she's adapting, I'm sure others, are in her age range are adapting as well. So I think, look, get as much content as you can in as many places as you can. That's always been my mindset.
And also, too, we talked about this before, Lakeena. Cord cutting has been huge over the last few
Yeah.
years. So people are saving money right now. And if you don't have to pay that much for streaming services, people will get it. Starting to see it now with not just Netflix, but with Hulu. I know there's a couple other
Prime.
services, Prime. And there's a couple others, too, that I'm not thinking about right now. But and YouTube is also in this as well. They still have under 100 channels, but you get the majority of your channels
Hulu.
yeah.
Hulu's got
So
the live
those
sports now.
options are
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
So definitely things are definitely changing, and we're in 2021. We'll see how this is in about 10 years. It'll probably be even more, once this TV contract, the NFL TV contract is up, we'll see how everything sort of transpires, and will be some major changes.
Yep. And before we get to our fun topic to close out the show, Lakeena, let's stick with baseball for just a moment. Did you happen to catch any of the White Sox Brewers game from Sunday as the White Sox open training with the 7-3 loss?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of actually listened to something on the radio, listening to Len Casper calling a White Sox game. That's definitely gonna be an adjustment, no doubt. But look, he sounds great. He and DJ, like, they're gonna have a really good time together. And look, I'm looking forward to seeing how this team, sort of meshes. I mean, look, you got Tim Anderson saying that, look, he's all in on Tony La Russa. So if he's all in on Tony La Russa, I think White Sox fans should be too.
Yeah, I'll say this quickly. Even though the Sox lost their first game, I know the Cubs will start soon. Even though the Sox lost their first game, they had a couple of pitchers out there that you probably won't see on the big league roster. Tony La Russa, as we said before, he's going to see who can fit with the team and who doesn't. And so I know there were some fans that were upset on Sunday, but this is what spring training is for. These games don't count. It's all about establishing habits, establishing a winning culture. You had to have a winning mindset. Everything starts from scratch. This is what it's all about. Do you hand out World Series trophies at the end of spring training? No, you don't. And I know this is a different sport, but in football, I've seen this in years past, Kenny. You can have the greatest preseason ever, and you come out flat for the regular season. And people can have mediocre preseasons, and they have great years. So it's kind of the same thing with baseball to a certain extent. So I didn't even react at all. I know I had a clip of Adam Engel's home run, but outside of that, it was nice to see baseball back on my television screen. But outside of that, I didn't care.
Right.
It's all about player evaluation anyway.
And remember, too, Abreu is coming back from COVID, is still recovering from COVID, so I think people should kind of give him a break on that, because, yes, he didn't look good yesterday, but come on now, let's give him a mulligan. I mean, he's recovering from COVID, so let's give him a mulligan. And it's like you said, it's spring training. Let's not take it seriously. Look, it's all about talent evaluations. See how, of course, your stars look, but also how some of your younger guys look. Guys that are fighting for those, last roster spots. So let's chill out now. And I don't want the Cubs start their spring training session against the Padres. So I think folks should just be a little. You guys know how spring training is. So let's not freak out because, you don't see your favorite doesn't play well right away. I mean, the Cubs are going to be facing, the Padres and also the Royals. They've placed the Royals today. So let's kind of give them a mulligan. Let's give these teams a mulligan here.
Exactly. You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown. As we wrap up today's show, Lakeena, we have a few minutes left. Let's end it on a high note, no pun intended. Let's go back down memory lane, shall we?
Okay.
That's what I did on Saturday night and all day on Sunday.
Uh-oh. Is this like family-friendly programming here? We got kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Watching old games from like the 90s or something like that.
No. It was old programming, but it had nothing to do with sports. Is from what we do and for what I do. Usually Sundays primarily, sometimes Saturdays, but mostly Sundays. That is only the free time that I do have. I know people binge watch current TV shows and movies and whatnot. Yours truly was been watching a couple of old TV shows from the 90s.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I was born in 1980, even though I'm 29. But those of you that are older than us, maybe 5 years younger than us, do you remember, Lakeena, those, of course, Saved by the Bell? You know where I'm going to, as I said the show. Saved by the Bell set the tone for teen comedies being shown on Saturday mornings, right?
Yeah. Totally.
They're the GOAT.
Yes.
They're the GOAT.
Oh, yes. Definitely set the tone for full-length
yes.
Saturday morning programming, yeah.
Exactly. Of course, we grew up in the 80s. We saw cartoons on all three networks, CBS, ABC, NBC. Of course, in the 90s, it was a shift for NBC. These are the couple of shows that I watched Saturday night and all day Sunday via the YouTube. Do you remember California Dreams?
Oh, yeah.
Great show. I was binge watching that a little bit. And do you remember this show was very underrated, but it was very good. Do you remember City Guys?
Yeah, loved City Guys.
CYTY, you can CY. These guys and these guys, call them Streetwise. Love that show.
Mm-hmm.
Love that show. I was been watching those two shows. Actually, it was the third show that I started late last night. But this show only lasted for about 3 seasons. Do you remember a show called One World?
I do.
It was set, for those of you that don't know, you can watch this on YouTube, by the way. This show, One World, was set. The storyline was it was a former baseball player. Him and his wife settled in Miami, and they adopted 6 kids from various racial and ethnic backgrounds, and they learned to live together as a family, and the kids go through their normal teenage issues and things along that line. I was like, I remember that program, but I didn't keep up with it long enough. So I said, let me watch every episode. So I started watching that last night. So I just wanted to say, yours truly had the nostalgia of I was in my late high school, early college years at that time. Yours truly felt so good about watching those programs over the weekend. And shout out to Lorena Costa. I had a big crush on her on California Dreams. Yours truly was excited, and I just wanted to say, during that era, they call it TNBC. Of course, they had other shows like Hang Time, and of course, Inside Stuff was in there as well. But I had such great memories and nostalgia watching those 3 shows over the weekend. I will continue to watch those going on. So you can watch those via the YouTube.
Good times, right? I mean, look, because I got to recharge my laptop here, folks. Sorry about that. But, I mean, oh, my God. That was like my Saturday mornings, of course, Saved by the Bell is the GOAT, it's the top, of all time. California Dreams is sort of like Saved by the Bell for like the teen band. Look, I had a big crush on Michael Cade. He played Sly. Still looks good, by the way, I have to say. I follow
Sylvester, yes. Boom!
Oh, yes. Still he actually is doing real estate now, which that's what a lot of actors who are not working anymore don't work much do. That's what he has is real estate now. He still looks fantastic, by the way, if I do say so myself. I follow him on Instagram.
Babu.
Babu. I mean, he still got it. I'm gonna keep saying that he still got it. But look, I mean, I like the fact that guys like him, they play around with it. Say, look, it was fun. They love the nostalgia because some actors who star in those type of shows want to stay away from that kind of stuff. But look, you get guys like him. They embrace it. I love City Guys too. It's sort of an edgier, teen, comedy. They did some heavy stuff too. I think that's what really separated them. One World, I remember. Yes. It kind of had its moments, but it got a little bit. But shout out to Peter Engel who kind of helped sort of break down those stereotypes. I mean, on that show, the Asian girl was actually the not so smart one, and the brother was actually the super smart guy. So
yes,
he definitely broke the look. That's all Peter Engel. I mean, he said he wanted to kind of break those stereotypes. I mean, look at Saved by the Bell. I mean, Lisa Turtle was actually supposed to have been a Jewish white girl. So
exactly.
And R.I.P. to Dustin Diamond. God rest his soul. I mean, he definitely was sort of. He ran that that Saved by the Bell train as long as he could. The new class was it had its moments, but it wasn't that great. So
yeah, even though it lasted long in terms of seasons, it lasted longer than the original. The original cast. Of course, for those that may have forgotten or just don't know, Saved by the Bell was actually called Good Morning Miss Bliss on the Disney Channel in '89. Of course, that following fall was moved to NBC. Of course, and the show took off from there. But the new class. I'm not going to say I didn't like it, Lakeena. Of course, it was all new people coming in. But the first couple years I watched it, and then it was like, I know they brought back, like you mentioned, R.I.P. Screech to keep that show relevant. They brought back Mr. Belden as well. He stayed there as a principal. But the first couple years of that show, it was still okay, but they started having casting changes as well, and it went down. It was like,
It was too
I'm surprised
much.
it lasted longer than it did. 7 seasons
right?
to be exact.
I know it was just too much, right? I mean, I remember the casting director Eve Bernstein, I think, or Berenstein or something like that. She was the casting director for both the original and the new class, and she said, look, it was always a problem because they couldn't find the right cast. I mean, some weren't as talented, some just didn't have the charisma like the original folks, and she said that was always a big problem. So they kept changing, and it was just getting too much, I think, for a lot of us. And like you said, Sid, I mean, it was just kind of, they played the Screech and also Dennis Haskins, Mr. Belding. Look, good for him. He played that. He wrote that right as long as he could.
Yeah.
Hey, look, he's still acting, by the way. He's still doing his thing. I saw him on one of the Netflix shows. I forgot which one, but I saw him on one of those streaming shows recently. So he's still working. So good for him. But I mean, look, those were good times, and today's teenagers and young kids will not know how good our generation had it when it came to like Saturday morning shows, both cartoon and full length. I mean, look, I remember the Bugs Bunny and the Smurfs and all those shows, and the Muppet Babies. I used to live. That was one of the few times I actually grew up. I actually woke up early on a Saturday to watch the Muppet Babies. You had me when I was getting up at 7:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to watch the Muppet Babies. Come on now.
Yeah. Also, we talked about not to go back too much, but we talked about the passing of Don Cornelius now exactly a month ago now. Of course, Channel 9 here in Chicago, Soul Train was on at 11 o'clock. And, of course, they had followed by the afternoon movie or Bad Cubs baseball. They decided to play in the afternoon. Of course, Bandstand with Dick Clark before they moved into syndication for that 87-88 television season. It was on 11:30 here in Chicago on Channel 7.
Yep.
And so those were good times. Of course, don't forget the WWE, but they had the WWF cartoon for a couple years in the mid to late 80s on CBS. I was looking at some of that stuff over the weekend. I was like, man. And all the stuff we watched on Saturday mornings. Of course, Kid and Play had their cartoon for 1 year. I think it was ran at the same time on a different network. Remember Hammer had his cartoon?
Yes, they did. Yes, he did.
Yeah. I remember flipping back and forth to watching those.
New Kids on the Block, had a cartoon.
That's right. Oh,
Remember Pro Stars with Michael Jordan and
yes,
Bo Jackson, Wade
Gretzky, and I think
Gretzky?
Bo
Yep.
Jackson. Yes, yes.
That was on for I think like a couple of seasons. Look, I think just
Hmm.
about everybody that was big back in like the 80s and 90s had a cartoon, or the 70s too. If you want to, look, we're not that old, folks, so we can't go that far. But look, I
We
mean,
saw
look,
them in repeats. I know you're going to say the Jacksons.
yes, the
Yes,
Brady
and
kids,
Fat Albert. Yep.
Yep, and Fat Albert, with you. Thank God for YouTube and the old Cartoon Network. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, look, Saturdays now. I mean, you got like those like special interests, but there are no cartoons unless you watch like some of the other cartoon channels that they have in your cable satellite provider. But I think folks took that stuff for granted and it kind of monopolized and. Look what happened. I mean, even now, I mean, with the Saved by the Bell type shows, I mean, you don't see those anymore. So it's just unfortunate.
You sure don't.
It's just
I know
unfortunate.
some of those shows were trying to make a comeback because, as we talked about before with sports on these streaming platforms. I know Saved by the Bell, they got the original cast back together. I think they did a few episodes on Peacock. I'll have to check those out. I'll give you a full book report in the future coming shows. But like you said, thank goodness for YouTube and these platforms. You can catch some of these old shows. And I just wanted to I brought that up because those TNBC shows, they were very underrated, but they were very good. I know they had to qualify for those TV ratings were coming out, but they were starting out back then, TV PG, TV 14, and all that. But those were children. It was, I forgot what it's called, but it was for teenagers and young adults, and they dealt with the various issues going on.
TVY7, I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yeah. But they dealt with, as we talked about, various issues and things along that line. I wonder, since we're living in a different society today, would those shows actually work?
That's a tough one.
I want to say yes, but we live in a different society now.
I don't think so. I mean, the attention spans are not like what it used to be, Sid. I mean, if shows don't hit right away, those shows will get yanked off the air like that. And the streaming services are different. Maybe you could get away with a little bit more then that you could now that you could have done back then, because they can only do so much. I mean, they did do some heavier topics, but they couldn't really get really deep into it. So I don't know. I would like to say maybe they could have, but I just don't. I don't think they would. I don't think so.
Yeah. Quickly before we get out of here, there could be a whole bunch of TV shows I'll ask you. I'll just throw these two shows out there. Do you think they'll work in today's environment? Different World.
I think so. Because you saw.
I said yes too.
Yeah, I'm about to say Vice President Harris is a HBCU grad. She's a Howard grad. So I think a show like that could work. But I think they need to be more ensemble, because the last couple of years of the show just weren't. To me, they weren't that good.
If you watch a homework assignment for our listeners and viewers, go watch Unsung Hollywood Different World. Lakeena gave you a little cliffhanger, so go watch Unsung Hollywood A Different World on YouTube, wherever you can get it. Google it, and you watch the whole episode. You'll find out reasons why Different World in my opinion, got taken off the air a year or two earlier than it was supposed to, but we'll leave it at that. One more show before we get out here, Lakeena. It was not part of the TNBC lineup in the 90s. Of course, this show went off the air in 1991, but Head of the Class, of course, it features future superstar Robin Givens. You had Dennis Schneider, he was doing something. I think he's still doing something with the cartoon world today. He played the big fat kid, but they had a diverse cast as well. Do you think that show will work in today's environment?
I've been thinking, they had the anniversary of the show, the debut of the show, I think a few months back, and I said it on Twitter then. I mean, I think a show like that could work. I mean, look, it was one of those shows it was one of the first shows that actually had a diverse cast. You had, the Asian student. You had the, you had like the punk, the kick, Brian Robbins, who you didn't think belonged there, but it actually turned out he actually did belong there. Trying to be tough, even though he was like super smart, trying to. He had the child genius. You had like two or three blacks. In the later seasons, they had a black dude, Aristotle. That's an interesting name for,
Yeah.
interesting name for a black dude. But that's another thing. But look, Rain Pryor, Richard Pryor's daughter as TJ. She was a great character. Her character worked her way, through remedial English. Got right to the top of the class, the head of the class.
Yeah.
Get it. I think that show that could work. I think because I think that look, we've been wanting diversity. That was one of the first shows that had diversity. So and I don't know about you, Sid, but I actually liked the last season with Billy Connolly. I thought he brought a different aspect of it to the show, even though it was just to finish up that year. We'll probably never know why Howard Hesseman decided to leave the show. Why didn't he finish it out? We'll probably never know, but. Happy birthday, by the way. You just turned 81 a couple of days ago, Howard Hesseman.
Wow, I didn't know he was that old. Wow.
Oh, he's been around a long time. It's been around a long time. Johnny Fever to those, folks who are older than us, WKRP in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, yeah. I, of course, remember watching those in reruns growing up. So, yeah, I know about that show. Real quick, shout out to that actress who played Maria. I know she did The Sopranos in the 90s.
Yeah,
so shout out to her. And also also another actor that played on Head of the Class, another future superstar. He did it the last 2 years on that show. He went on to do New York Undercover.
I know you're talking
Michael
about.
De Lorenzo.
Had a big crush on him. Still looks good. They actually another unsung Hollywood that they did on New York Undercover. You'll see why his
great episode. Yes, go look for it on YouTube, folks.
You'll see why his character got killed off. He'll bring up the reason why he left the show. But yeah, so look, Dan Snyder, I should say. He. I think he's like the king of Nickelodeon for like years. Developing various shows. He's been doing pretty well. But I think he's with I think he's with one of the other streaming services. I think his contract right now with Nickelodeon, I think about a year ago. I think he's with one of the streaming services now, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta look that up. But yeah, he's still around. He's still developing shows, Drake and Josh, iCarly, many other shows. So he's like the king of teen shows. So he knew what was up. He knew what the cash cow was.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying the guy that played Arvid, he's actually aged pretty well too. So, I saw him in doing a retrospect recently. They should have a class reunion. Look, everybody else is doing it. Why not?
Exactly. So I know we have MeTV. I know we have Antenna TV. But we need some of those shows that if you're not going to put them on those two networks because, the broadcasting cable networks and the broadcasting networks won't show those reruns ever again for some of those shows that need to be shown again to a newer generation. But they need to start putting those shows like Head of the Class in those TNBC shows. If you're a Peacock, those TNBC shows, they goes for YouTube. But if you're a Peacock, that's part of NBC. Put those California Dreams and One World and City Guys, especially on Peacock, people will start watching. I'm telling you, we need some of those shows back.
Head of the Class too. Come on, Hulu. Come on, you get Disney. You got that contract with Hulu. I don't know if they own. I don't know if they own the show. I think they own by Warner Brothers. But look, let's put these shows on these streaming networks. Come on now, you guys have zero excuses. No excuses.
Yeah, people are, like we said before, people are consuming entertainment in different ways, not just one way anymore.
And also, too, people are still in their homes, so I think people will love the nostalgia. So, just whew, boy, I love this trip down memory lane. So we should do that every once in a while because this was fun.
Yes, that's I had to do it because those shows on TNBC were very underrated. Let's also, too, real quick, I haven't watched some of these episodes yet, but I will starting soon. Hang Time.
Oh, I love Hang Time.
Anthony Anderson got his start on that show, of course. Reggie Theus, former NBA player. He was the first head coach, and, of course, he was replaced by Dick Bugs for those last couple years on that show.
I think because he took a job, I think in New Mexico State, if I'm not mistaken, he went back to he went to coaching in real life. So but
he was also doing TNT at that time too. So
and Dick Buckets,
he had to let that go as well.
Yeah, Dick Buckets he's actually a pretty good actor. People forget how good of an actor he is.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what's a football guy doing coaching basketball?
Oh, look, he did the last couple of years on My Two Dads. So Look, he's
That's
actually
right. That was
pretty
all I
good.
was thinking about. I was like, he was on another show before, but I couldn't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually fit that
Yeah.
mold. So look, who knew that Anthony Anderson would actually end up being the only one that's actually still working in the industry out of all those
Exactly.
folks? Who would have thought?
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving
Big, young,
on.
chubby guy. Now he looks good, slimmed down
know.
from that time.
I know, got hit shows all over the place, producing hit
Yeah.
shows. So, look, more power to him.
Exactly.
On that note, you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. You can follow our podcast, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast programming from War Media by simply searching for War on Anchor, which kicks you over to iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. We're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. And as we take a bow, thank you very much for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes.
Right. So enjoy the weather out there. It's going to look pretty good here in the Midwest for next week, I should say. Don't go too crazy though, folks, because we're not there.
We have sunshine and the snow is just about gone.
All right, but let's keep it calm, folks. But look, even still, wash your hands, keep your distance, and wear your mask because it's still. We lost a really great one here at Erica Watson, comedian, if you saw Wednesday live, that was just on just now. I mean, just tragic. So COVID's still out there, folks. Take it seriously and, keep doing your thing. We're in the home stretch, but you still got to take those precautions.
Yes. Until next time, holla.
All right. Enjoy the games, everybody.